Peace, peace. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, soul family. Welcome to this amazing session that we are having tonight. I'm so happy to see all of you here. Let me just greet some of you that came in here early. Peace, Vintasha. Peace, everything is everything. Welcome. Peace, I know. Peace, Sokiera. Peace, Melissa. Shani, you said, I miss being in Sister Myra's class. I know. Her classes are amazing. Welcome, everyone. Peace, Kim. Peace, Christiane, Patricia, Gloria Walters. Peace, Sage Page. Peace, Pat Odom Andrews. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here tonight. So tonight is a special session that we're having. Sister Myra is teaching. The topic is astrology is the blueprint. And she's going to talk about something in only the way that she can talk about this, right? So Sister Myra is going to tell you why astrology is important, why she uses astrology, her story behind using astrology, why it's important for you to understand it, right? Last week I said astrology, you need to learn it, and it's not so complicated. Although people like to think that it is, or like to portray that as something really complex, right? And let me tell you why I'm saying this. I've been studying astrology for years, but it wasn't until like 5, 6 years ago that I actually did a one-on-one class with Sister Myra, and she taught me astrology holistic, or I call it spiritual astrology. And when she taught that, it just opened up so much, and it put a lot of pieces together. And I said, this really isn't as complex as people say it is, right? So when I say that it's something that is easy to understand the fundamentals, right? We're not getting too deep into, certain aspects of it, but just the fundamentals of it. I mean that. And so she's going to talk about that tonight. She's also going to talk about her amazing course. There's but so much that I can say. I don't know how to articulate how life transformative it is for me. It really showed who I was, right? Really taught me a lot about myself, my work, etc. The spiritual half, the physical half, and only Sister Myra can do this. This is a course that she created herself, and she's going to talk a little bit about that as well tonight. So, without further ado, please welcome Sister Myra Moss on here tonight. Please welcome her. Drop some blue hearts, any hearts, any hearts, any love messages. Welcome, Sister Myra. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Professor Melanie. I am honored, as usual, in this request. And what we say, the astrology is the blueprint. That's what we're looking at here tonight. And so this is what we're going to try to, like she said, I'm going to try to explain in only a way that I know how to explain. I mean, I have a lot of people who say they love the work I do, but they don't know how to articulate it. So this is why I wrote my book, A Perfect Reflection. It's more like a manual than reading like a book, because it's like researching. If you want to know more about Big Mama, it's a chapter on Big Mama. If you want to know more about Righteous Father's Spirit, I deal with the family of energy. All this is about family. It's precept upon precept. How I actually got into astrology, and to me, astrology is a tool when it comes to understanding spiritual energy. It's really spiritual energy that I've mastered, and astrology is one of the tools, one of the main tools that I use when it comes to understanding spiritual energy. And as Professor Melanie was saying, it's not as difficult as most people believe. The reason they think astrology is difficult is because it's so much information. It's just so much. It's a lot. When I first started really studying it, I remember reading some material where they were expressing the fact that, you know, um, you know, get your full in what you're learning and then give it a pause, back up, let it process before you continue to move on to more information because it's infinite. The information is infinite. We're studying the universe and how it operates. So it has to be precept upon precept upon precept. And in that way, it opens up for you. It takes a life of its own. The thing about it is that everybody will be able to process it once they do understand the fundamentals of how, what it means. The reason uh, I can simplify it is because what I do is um, I put it in a form, where, in other words, it's just not scattered information, energy hitting you from everywhere. You're being bombarded with all this information about astrology, astrological energy. What we do is put it in, and that's what the first course is about. It's broken down, the class is broken down into like two courses. You have the first course, the fundamental of astrology, where you're learning the fundamentals of understanding astrology and putting it in categories, putting it in certain, like we have the modes, which is like cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. We have the elements. We have the, there's things that we can put astrology in these categories so that it makes more sense as you're understanding it. Where does this fit in the larger scheme? Where does this fit? Where does that fit? And when you put some sort of structure to the information, that's how it becomes easier because it's like, the pieces come together in a meaning. I always say um, how what I use, what I've been using more lately, is giving you a perspective of the Cinderella story because we have to personify energy in order to understand how energy works. You can't just say this energy, influences this or this influences that. You have to put it in a form where it's like telling a story. And to me, the main story for understanding astrology is that Cinderella story. That is Daughter Earth story. The first thing I have to tell you is that when we're dealing with astrological energy, we're not dealing with time. We're dealing with levels. This is the first thing I had to come to an understanding about as I started studying astrology, that we're dealing with a multitude of levels. And, and each level opens up as in other words, spiritual energy is spiral. And you have like 180 degrees on each half. And you complete that 180 degrees on each half opposites. That's the key. The key to everything when it comes to astrological energy is balance. Two halves make a whole, holistic. You have to see the whole or holistic before you see the real. Anytime you're only looking at a part of the whole, that is the illusion. So seeing a holistic view of how astrology unfolds. And it does unfold to the biggest thing you have to understand. We're going to start with the fact that astrology, astrological energy, unfolds through a negative and positive polarity. That is the biggest detail that we have to start with. It unfolds through a negative and positive polarity. And anywhere you balance opposites is where you create that whole. where you do 180 degrees on one half. And once you complete that 180 degrees on one half, and overall, we're looking at maybe the physical half. So you do 180 degrees on the physical half. We've done that. We've completed that as a collective. We've completed the 180 degrees of the physical half of this universal operation. There's a bigger purpose being fulfilled. There's a universal purpose being fulfilled. And we are just the individual aspects of this universal purpose being fulfilled. And it's all contingent on how energy unfolds through a negative and positive polarity, which means no gain, no pain, no gain. The same extent the pain will be the same extent the gain. Two halves make a whole. Energy can only go 180 degrees. And then you have to complete one half before you activate the opposite response in the opposite half in equal measure. So 180 degrees on each half is how we complete a full 360 degree spiral. Spirit is spiral. And until it completes a full 360 degree spiral, it's not whole, it's not complete, it's not real. You're still looking at a part of the whole. So you have to do one half, and we've done collectively the physical half. And then once you complete that physical half, then it activates the opposite spiritual half at 180 degrees in balance to that physical half. Now, the physical half is the pain half. You know, we've been the physical vessels of sacrifice and struggle through not just this lifetime, but through many lifetimes. We have been the physical vessels of sacrifice and struggle. That is the negative polarity or the physical half of this holistic universal purpose and how energy unfolds. And once you complete one half, then it activates the opposite response in equal measure. So now that we've completed the 180 degrees of the physical half, now we're going to activate the opposite 180 degrees spiritual half of this process. This is just how energy unfolds through spirals. And once you balance that opposite 180 degree, then that is how you complete a full 360 degree spiral. That 360 degree spiral is where we open up a vortex for access to the next level energy vibration. We're dealing with a multitude of levels, not time, levels. So the first level is that balance first with your own spirit, your own spiritual half. You have a spiritual partner. And each one of us has a spiritual partner. Your spiritual partner will be the opposite sign or energy of your sun sign. The sun sign is what you come into each lifetime to focus. Whenever we're looking at the sun, that is always the focus of energy. What's being exposed in the focus of energy. So coming into each lifetime, the sun sign, where was the sun sitting, what constellation at the time, moment, and date of your birth. You know, so that dictates what you come into this lifetime to focus on as your sun sign and expose. The sun sign is the sun is always exposure, it's always focus. So wherever you see the sun is where the energy is being exposed and where the energy is being focused. And then, so your sun sign, wherever the sun was sitting, what constellation at the moment of your birth represents your sun sign. And then your opposite sign of that, your spiritual energy is going to represent the opposite energy of your sun sign. I don't believe in 12 individual signs anymore. I believe in 6 axes of energy, because it's not until you put the two halves or opposites together that you have the whole. When you only talk about one sign, you're talking about it's like half a sentence. You have to balance it with the opposite sign in order to see the whole meaning. And I always demonstrate this, these six axes of energy. We start with Aries and Libra. They are opposites. Aries is the warrior, the fire, Mars energy, where Libra, its opposite, is the peacemaker, air element, and it is the it's the peacemaker. So balancing those opposites. So Aries and Libra is the first axis of energy where I like to demonstrate this premise. Aries, the warrior, the fire, and Libra, the air, the peacemaker. When we're dealing with air, we're dealing with righteous thinking. When we're dealing with the fire element, we're dealing with the actions we take or what we do. So a warrior taking a stand for peace or fighting for justice or fighting for what's right. Libra, the sign of righteousness and peace and balance. So the way I put it, I say if you separate Aries and Libra, you have Aries running around kicking butt all over town as the warrior, and Libra keeping the peace with no backbone. And somebody thought I meant that Libra is weak. No, that doesn't mean it's weak. It's just their focus is on peace and keeping the peace, you see. So where Aries is the warrior. And if you separate them, that's what you will get by looking at each individual side of that energy. It's not until you put the two together that you have a warrior who takes a stand for righteousness or fighting for peace or fighting for what's right. That is how you put those two halves together and get the whole meaning behind it. Not just half, not just looking at Aries as the warrior, or Libra as the peacemaker. When you put the two together, someone who fights and takes a stand to stand up for peace or stand up for righteousness. So that is how all energy works in those pairs. So it's not 12 individual signs. You can't talk about one sign without its opposite. The opposite energy is that spiritual energy. So Aries, if you come in with an Aries sun sign, then your spiritual energy is going to be the Libra. So once you have, done your half on the physical half, then that automatically activates your spiritual half on the Libra half, so that those two halves come together in a full spiral. Spirit is spiral. What goes around comes around. So that is how you complete a full 360-degree spiral, 180 degrees on each half. That is where you open up a vortex. The first spiral is with your own spirit, you see. So you would do all you know to do on the physical half through Aries. And then once you've completed your 180-degree maximum, then is when it will activate the opposite response of energy, your spiritual energy, through the Libra half. And that is how you bring the two together in a full 360-degree spiral, open up that vortex. That's the first level that you balance energy, is between you on the physical and your spirit on the spiritual half. Once you have balanced those two halves, that's the first level. Then that is how you open up the vortex to access the next level energy vibration, and the second level. So the second level is a mate level, a couple level. And then we're dealing with soulmates. We're dealing with twin souls. Your soulmate, that's a love relationship, but it's a growth love relationship. This is someone you draw to you who has the energy that you're most lacking, and vice versa. It's a mutual exchange. They have the energy you most need. Say you're lacking in your water. So they'll bring the water. Say they're lacking in their air. You'll bring the air. So you guys grow from your connection with one another as you fully help to round out each other's energy. These are the soulmate relationships. They're growth relationships. And once you have given all the energy at that second level to that you were meant to give to that person, and vice versa, those relationships can be temporary. They're just growth. They help you grow. And once you have grown to your maximum through your soulmate relationships, that is when you're now in position to attract your twin soul. This is also the second level, the mate level. Your twin soul, um, you have to be at your maximum because spiritual energy moves inside out, not outside in. We're energy transmitters as well as receivers, but it's what we send out as to what we spiral back. So it all is activated from within. So once you're at your maximum and secure in who you are, in your value, through your spiritual growth, through those mutual exchange with the soulmates to help you grow to your maximum, 180-degree maximum, that is now how you'll send that vibration out external and it attract back your mate, who is also at that maximum growth, that 180-degree maximum. So a match for who you are in your energy at your highest level of growth. That is where you attract a mate at also at their maximum at that level. So that is how the two comes together as twin souls. Your twin soul is someone that you were with as an energy being. We're energy beings. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. There's a bigger universal purpose. And there are some of us who fail from the highest levels of the universe to the lowest levels of the earth to regenerate and transform energy, or mama's love, mama universe. That's the highest level. We're looking at mama universe or mama love, and she's the mama of us all. But she's too omniscient to come down here and dispense her love to her children at ground level. So there are some of us who she sent in from that highest universal level that fell to the lowest level in order to transform and regenerate her love, to manifest her love at ground level and regenerate that love from the highest to the lowest, and then regenerate that love back to the highest again, full spiral. So from the highest to the lowest, and that back full spiral to the highest again. Anytime you're at the highest level spiritually, and you want to take it to an even higher level, you have to regenerate the energy. That means you have to fall even lower than you were high, so you can bring it back full spiral to an even higher level as you complete that spiral. From the highest, you have to fall to the lowest, and from the lowest, you have to bring that energy back in transformation and regeneration back to the highest level again. Full spiral. Spirit is spiral. And until it reaches that full 360-degree, full spiral, 180 degrees on each half, it's not complete, it's not whole. And if it's not complete or whole, it's not real. You're only looking at an illusion. Anytime you're looking at a part of the whole, that is the illusion. The universal purpose being fulfilled is a holistic purpose, and you have to be holistic to participate. And that starts with that first balance with your own spirit, which is the opposite energy of your sun sign. So once you make that balance or that partnership with your own spirit, then that opens up that first vortex, that 360-degree vortex, giving you access to the second level, as I was talking about the soulmates and the twin souls. Your twin soul, that maximum growth, where you're ready to attract your maximum vibrational equal, your match. The twin souls, energy beings. When you were an energy being, you were biuna with your twin soul. And when you fell into the flesh, you separated into duality, male and female. You've had many lifetimes cultivating a love relationship with this person. But you had to first cultivate this love relationship on an unequal basis, which means there's some lifetimes you would have come together as mother and son. There's some lifetimes you would have come together as father and daughter. Um, there are only 4 members of the royal family at its highest vibration of energy collectively, and you identify those 4 family members through the 4 elements, you see. So this is what I mean when I say we start categorizing the energy in order to understand it. So the 4 elements gives you the 4 perspectives. They're like 4 pistons in an engine of the 4 family members at the highest collective energy vibration. So we have the masculine half, which is air element, and the fire element. The air element is the father component, father spirit, righteous father spirit, who speaks to you external through the mind or how you think. That is the father component, the air element, the the father spirit, righteous father spirit, who speaks to you external through how you think, or the mind, the air element. And whenever we're dealing with spirit, spirit is always a collective. You have to pull energy to create spirit. That's why they say we're more than one. It's called in my name, so shall I be Father's spirit. So pooling energy to create spirit. And the highest agenda of righteous father spirit, the father of righteous thinking, the highest agenda is a collective righteous mindset. That is what he's influencing in his fourth of that cycle of energy. Also on the masculine half is the fire element. That is the sun component. S-O-N individually, and S-U-N at the planetary level. So the sun, the fire, our passions, our desires, and the highest vibration of the sun, or the fire element on the masculine half, is creative powers. We're dealing with creative powers when we're dealing with the fire element. You know, Leo particular is the sign, well, all fire is creative power. But when Leo, what you're looking at with Leo is the personal, your own personal creative powers, where you're creative at in your own personal power, you see. And so that is what the sun brings to the table, your creative powers. The fire, the actions you take, you see, what you do when it comes to that fire element. The air is what you think. So spiritual power, when you put the air in the fire, or the father and the sun as the masculine half. But the key to the universe is balance. Now, listen, I'm saying masculine, feminine. I'm not saying male, female. You know, masculine and feminine. So the key to the universe is balance. 2 halves make a whole, holistic. So that means if there's a father, there has to be a mama. If there's a son, there has to be a daughter. That is why it becomes easy when you understand the structure of astrology. It all comes together to tell this universal family story. This is a family of energy. You know, this is a family endeavor. Your physical family, in referencing the Cinderella story, that is your physical family. Your physical family in the Cinderella story is your step family. See, the step family. The step family is the family, the half of this operation where you're wounded. We're all on a soul's journey. And in order for energy to unfold, it has to unfold through that negative and positive polarity. So the physical half, the negative polarity, that is where we're wounded at through the physical family in personifying this energy through the Cinderella story so you can understand what it means. So the physical family is your step family in referencing the Cinderella story. They're the ones that wound you, as a child growing up in that family on the physical half. The wounding or the negative polarity. And these wounds are generationally passed down, which means the way you were wounded by your parents is the same way your parents were wounded by their parents, and their parents were wounded by their parents, and on and on. So a generational wounding that has been passed down on the physical half of this family operation. And your wounding or the negative polarity. The wounding is how you've been stagnated in your spiritual growth on your soul's journey. So that have to be completed as the negative polarity. So being wounded generationally by the step family or the physical family. Daughter Earth is, well, I'll get to that. So I don't want to jump ahead too much. I want to stay in order. So that physical family, the negative polarity where you're wounded, growing up as a child in that family, which stagnates your spiritual growth, you see. So the wounding half. But anytime we get into the Aquarius age, that is when it's time for the buck to stop here. In other words, we cannot continue to send that wound to the next generation. It's time to expose those wounds. And usually the family member that exposes those wounds are normally the sacrificial lamb of that family unit, you see. This is all a family endeavor. And when you were an energy being and you took your mission and your purpose to fulfill your spiritual purpose and destiny, you took it as a family unit. You didn't take it individually. You took that purpose as a family unit when you were energy beings. Your family, you and your family decided together who was going to play the role of the heavy and who was going to play the role of the sacrificial lamb of the family. The one who would take the brunt of the wounding, but when you balance out the brunt of the wounding, when we complete that physical half, that is the one who also now brings back the brunt of the reward in healing. So deciding as a family unit who would be the sacrificial lamb of the family through many, many lifetimes. You see, so those who are wounded the most are the ones who then have access the most to the healing aspect, where you access your spiritual gifts and powers and the reward of that wounding. So you decided with that family member who would play that role. So this is all from one end, the physical family, and on the opposite end, the spiritual collective energy family. You have two families. You have a physical family that wounds you, which is your step family, that negative polarity. And when you complete that half, that is how you then activate the opposite balance in response from your spiritual energy family. Your ancient energy family will then bring the healing half to the table, which then it's 180 degrees, which then completes that full 360-degree spiral and open up that vortex where you can then access, the next level energy vibration or the gifts and the powers, of that holistic access to that universal family. When you go to sleep at night, that's what your spirit does. It takes you back to that ancient energy family in the universe, in your astral traveling. That's where you go back to that energy family. And that is where you are imbued with the gifts and the powers, the magic, our ancestors, our ancient ancestors in the soul realm, in the subconscious realm. That is where you access that when you go to sleep. You go into the subconscious, which is the soul realm, what's hidden in your ancient Akashic records, your ancient memory. That is where you access that ancient energy family energy. And we don't remember because the subconscious and the conscious realm, when you wake up into the conscious realm, they are opposites. So it's hard to bring something subconsciously, and the deeper you go into the subconscious, the harder it is to bring that energy back to the conscious realm because they're opposites. Two opposites can't occupy the same space at the same time. One has to give way to the other. And so trying to bring subconscious information, unless you have a gift, and there are those of that are gifted that can access that and bring that back, particularly when we're looking at the last axis of energy of Virgo and Pisces. So bringing those gifts and those powers, that's where you access those gifts and those powers in the subconscious realm. And that is where, since spirit is spiral, you will then access those gifts and powers and then bring it back full spiral to the benefit of your physical family or your conscious family. So that is how this energy unfolds through that family unit of energy. So the sacrificial lamb who carries the brunt of the wounding is the one who has deeper access to the brunt of the reward and the healing. And now bringing that energy back to the benefit of that physical family. This serves two purposes. Now, you can now demonstrate those powers that you access in the subconscious energy half or your energy family. You can bring that energy back and now use it in the benefit of that physical family. And it shows you, or it validates the fact that you do have those powers as you use that to the well-being of your physical family. Putting out the energy of their protection, their healing. Doesn't mean, if you're estranged from them, it doesn't mean you have to get back with them. It just means that you'll send that vibration out to them in their well-being and in their protection so they can be healed. And also it demonstrates to you, you do have those powers and you don't have to look over your shoulders and worry about your loved ones who drank the Kool-Aid. You can demonstrate and practice how you use those powers to the benefit of your physical family. Now you don't have to look over your shoulders anymore and worry about your physical family. And now you have the security and the confidence of utilizing those powers, activating those powers. So now you can look up to your highest agenda or your highest purpose and destiny. And that is using this for the benefit of Big Mama's family. Mama Universe. So now you become a vessel for Big Mama, where you have been wounded and healed. And now you're being used as a vessel of that energy to help heal others who have been wounded the same way you were wounded as a child growing up in that step family of being wounded. So now you can be used as a vessel for Big Mama, because once we tapped into the highest levels vibration, it's like we're releasing that energy, opening that gateway and releasing it for others to have access to it as well. So how you have been energized in your wounding and your healing is now how you'll be used as a vessel to open up that energy vibration for others who were wounded the way you were wounded and now can be healed, as you were healed. So that is how it works in that family dynamic. And once you have practiced and become secure and confident that you do have these gifts and powers, now you can look at your highest purpose and destiny in serving mama's family, in helping heal that wound collectively in this evolutionary process. This is why this happens in the Aquarian age, because it's the energy of evolution. Aquarius is the energy of I know, and Aquarius is the energy of the humanitarian. So, as we get back to those 6 axes of energy, we did the Aries and Libra. Then we do the Taurus and Scorpio, that balance of opposites. Then we do the Gemini, Sagittarius, that axis of energy. Then we do the Cancer, Capricorn, that axis of energy. Then we do the Leo, Aquarius, that axis of energy. And then we do the final axis of Virgo and Pisces, the 6 axes of energy. So those are what has to balance in order to create that whole. So once the one that is most dominant in this 6 axis of energy is the Leo and Aquarius energy. This is where this operation comes to a fulfillment. In other words, we complete spirals for access to the next level. Opening up that vortex to access to the next level, where we start a new spiral at a higher vibration, complete that spiral to access the next level, where we complete that spiral and then ascend to the next level as we complete these spirals. It's an infinite process. You never get there. You only complete spirals for access to the next level. So an infinite process in the universe to ascend these spirals by completing that balance between those opposites. And so once you have, like I said, that partnership first with your own spirit, completing that spiral, giving you access to the second level, which I describe as the mate level, where you're dealing with your twin souls or your soulmate. The twin soul, like I said, the energy being where you were biuna, and then you fell into the flesh and you separated into duality, where you now have cultivated this love relationship with this twin soul through a multitude of lifetimes, but you had to first do it on an unequal basis. So some lifetimes coming together as mother and son, then father and daughter. But when you come together as brother and sister, that is the mate level. That is the yin yang level, where the two halves have now become equal and now come together as one. Anytime you balance those opposites, the twin souls are the individual relationships, but the collective relationships of the twin souls is that yin and yang balance, where the two halves have now become equal and now come together as one. That's where the evolution occurs. That's where you evolve, when the two halves as twin souls coming together collectively as yin and yang comes into equal balance, the two halves completing that major cycle in the Aquarian age. Otherwise, we're ascending as we complete those spirals. But when we get into the Aquarian age, Aquarius is the sign of evolution. That means we've now balanced on enough levels to ascend to the next level in spiritual rulership. Spiritual rulership. The air element, Aquarius, the energy of evolution, the energy of I know, and the energy of the humanitarian. And it's balanced with Leo, the creative rulers or the creative powers, where you're creative at, your creative powers. So the resurrection of the sun is really the sun Leo into his creative powers. And once he has resurrected into his creative power as the sun Leo, remember you have all the energy in you, then that leads us to the next fire sign, because we're in a spiritual rotation when we're looking at ages of energy. In the physical rotation, you go from Aries to Leo to Sagittarius in that fire axis of energy. But when you were looking at the spiritual rotation, it's opposite. We're going to start with Leo as the resurrection of the sun. He resurrects into his creative powers into Aries energy or Haru's energy, Mars energy. Aries is the most personal sign of the zodiac. This is where you come to the full personal 360 degrees of that personal power. And the reason you come to the full 360 degrees of your personal power in Aries as Haru, that's where you step up as Haru when you come to your full 360 degrees of personal power through Aries energy. The reason Aries is because the opposite sign of Aries is Libra. Everybody gets into partnership with their spirit through Libra. So coming to that balance and partnership with your spirit through Libra, is where you bring that balance between Libra and Aries, where you step into your holistic you in balance with your spirit as Haru, coming to your full 360 degrees of personal power. And then the Harus will all come together in the last fire sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius, the ultimate fire, where you now resurrected as Leo in your creative powers into the Harus or Aries, where you come to your full 360 degrees of personal power. And then the Harus come together as Sagittarius, the last fire sign, the ultimate son of power, when we're dealing with the fire element, the ultimate son of power. And the planetary ruler of Jupiter, of Sagittarius, is Jupiter. Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, is the great beneficent. Everybody gets their blessings through Jupiter, the great beneficent. Anything Jupiter touches in its energy, it brings in abundance. So now we got the Harus in all their fire, 360 degrees of personal power under the auspices of Jupiter energy, which opens up the abundance of that power. And that is where you step up to that abundance of collective empowerment. But however, the key to everything in the universe is righteousness. So Father Spirit, the Father of righteous thinking, is the one who had to cut the ultimate sun, Sagittarius, and Sagittarius, as it comes together in all that fire energy, that is where we're looking at a SARS energy. That is a SARS energy, where all the fire has come together as a resurrection of the sun into creative power in Leo, resurrecting into Haru through Aries, where you come to your full 360 degrees of personal power. And then that all comes together in Sagittarius, the maximum of that collective power, which equates to who Asar is, the maximum son of power. However, the only sin in the spiritual reality is the abuse of power, the corrupted abuse of power. So now we've got the ultimate son of power in the position to abuse that power. And that's the only sin there is in the spiritual reality, the abuse of power. It's opposite the physical, where there's a multitude of sins. There's only one sin in the spiritual reality, and that's the abuse of power. So that is why the ultimate Father, righteous Father Spirit, the air element, had to cut, the Father of righteous thinking, had to cut the ultimate Son of power down into 14 cycles of time so he could mature and how to use that power righteously without abusing it, you see. And that is where we're at in the larger scheme of things. The ultimate Son has now proven that he will use his powers righteously without abusing them. And that is where he now reaps that abundance of that collective power in that ultimate resurrection. The last piece in those 14 pieces was the penis, the power of collective resurrection in the abundance of power and righteous rulership out of the abuse of power. That is what we've reached in the physical half, in its maximum 180 degrees at a global level. Because from the couple level, we then go, as we complete that vortex, it gives us access to the next level, which is the family level. And once we ascend from the family level, we do the local, we do the national, we do the international levels. That takes us to a global level. The global level is that maximum 180 degree half, physical half. And we've reached that maximum 180 degrees of that global level. This is where the powers that have been have come together at a global level in their maximum corrupted abuse of power. All the systems of the world, the systems of illusion, has become corrupted, fully corrupted at a global level, a global agenda. This is what we experienced in the last 4 or 5 years, if you know what I mean. We've been under the auspices of the father of illusion, the ma of tricks, the matrix, and the ma of terror, false parents, in this physical half and at this global level of powers that have been, who have reached their maximum in their corrupted abuse of power. And so they continue to keep you in this lower vibration, in this physical half, by lowering your vibration through doubts, fears, and guilt, you see. The father of illusion. He has to intimidate you into believing he has power over you, but his power is not real. Your power is internal. It's not outside of you. So he keeps you in doubts, fears, and guilt in order to keep you lowered in your vibration. I always equate it to the big bad wolf and the 3 little pigs. The big bad wolf is the intimidator. He has to intimidate you into believing it has power over you through doubts, fears, and guilt. And that is how we're energizing the illusion. Through our doubts, our fears, and our guilts. That is what's energizing the illusion. And keeping us lowered in our vibration, because we are getting divine intervention from our highest parents, righteous Father Spirit and Mama Universe. This whole aspect is dealing with daughter Earth and the Son of Power. These are the stars of this show here. This is what this whole agenda is about, lifting up daughter Earth and the Son of Power. So the Father of righteous thinking, Father Spirit, and Mama Universe are trying to give us that divine intervention to lift our vibration so that we can participate. Just like I said, with Jupiter energy being the great beneficent Sagittarius energy, who opens up the blessings to everyone. However, Sagittarius is a very optimistic energy, which means you have to be optimistic to tap into your blessings, or you'll go right up under it. So that is what the powers that have been role is, to keep us lowered in our vibration so that we don't tap into that divine intervention and step up to our highest vibration in this divine intervention from righteous Father Spirit and Mama Universe, keeping us under the auspices of the father of illusion, the Ma of tricks, the matrix, and the Ma of terror, materialism. Keeping you lowered in your vibration through your doubts, fears, and guilt in that scenario. The big bad wolf, the father of illusion, who has to intimidate you into believing it has power over you through your doubts, your fears, and your guilt, you see. And that is how we're energizing that illusion. And this is what we experienced in the last 4 to 5 years. Through, don't visit your grandma. You'll make your grandma sick. These sort of things. Perpetuating those doubts, those fears, those guilts to keep you lower in your vibration and vulnerable to the attack of this lower energy vibration in these false parents, these step parents, the physical parents, the ones that represents the negative polarity to lower your vibration and keep you vulnerable to that attack. They can't come up and get us. They have to pull us down through doubts, fears, and guilts, lower our vibration to keep us, focused in the lower vibrations or of the illusion. So that is this is all a family thing. So that is what we went through in the last 4 or 5 years. Doubts, fears, and guilts. You can't even work a job if you don't participate with this. You see, intimidating you to participate through your doubts, your fears, and your guilts, you see. But you have to be secure from within. Earth and water are internal. Earth is your security, water is your emotional happiness, and spirit moves inside out. So when you're secure in the value of what you feel, which is how mama, through the water element, speaks to you internal, through your feelings or your love. Mama love, the water element. She is the one who is responsible for that love vibration. She deals with the magic. She deals with antiquity. Those are mama's domains, the ancient of ancients, the love, speaking to you internally through how you feel through your love. The love is the one bond of energy that is never broken, from antiquity to new age, through many, many lifetimes, antiquity to new age, that love bond. So mama love. So like I said, whoever you love in the conscious realm is who mama is exposing who you love from antiquity. You see, carrying that energy. If you remember in the movie The Matrix, that is how Trinity resurrected Neo from the dead, or the illusion of power through his ego, by kissing him and resurrecting him. A man can't come out of the Matrix in ego. So she had to resurrect him from his ego. Neil was trying to identify his power or himself as the one through his ego. And so she had to resurrect him from the illusion of his power. She said, the oracle, which is speaking for Big Mama internally, the oracle told me I was going to fall in love with the one. The oracle told me I was going to fall in love with a dead man. I'm in love with you. That makes you the one. Now get your butt up. That is how she resurrected him, by imparting that knowing to him. You have to know your power in order to activate your power. That is when he went to the oracle, and the oracle said, no, you're not the one. That is why, because he doubted his power, because he was trying to identify it through his ego. So that is how, that is why she said, no, you're not the one, the oracle, and pointed to the sign above the door that says, know thyself. If you don't know you're the one, then you're not the one. It's not till you know who you are can you step up to that. That is the Aquarius and Leo axis of energy. Aquarius, I know. Leo, creative ruler. I know I am a creative ruler to activate that power. If you don't know it, you don't have it. So that is how Trinity imparted that knowing to Neil, to resurrect him from the illusion of power through his ego, and connecting him to the source of his power, Big Mama, Mama Universe, the source of all energy, to the source of his power, Mama Love. So resurrecting him from the illusion of power through his ego, and resurrecting him from the dead. And then in the second movie, he brings her back to life, but he goes internal. First, he removes the bullet or the damage, and then he goes back in and massages her heart. And the first thing she says when she opens her eyes is, now we're equal, or now we're even, now we're equal. Now we can come together as one. Telepathically connected. She's in the background, the internal, giving him guidance through her wisdom, Virgo energy. And he moves out and exposes the power as the sun, Leo. That's the role Trinity and Neil played in the movie The Matrix, Leo and Virgo. So she internal, giving him guidance through her wisdom, Virgo, earth is internal, the daughter component, and he exposes the power guided by her wisdom as the sun, the fire, the Leo. You see, so that's the role they played in the movie The Matrix. Telepathically connected, and him exposing that power that she's imparting to him from the internal or the earth, when it comes to his, the security in his value. Earth and water, internal. Earth is your emotional happiness, and water, and earth is your security, and water is your emotional happiness. And that is why you have to move your spirit out from the security. When you're secure in the value, the earth element of what you feel, the water element, how mama speaks to you internal through how you feel or your love. That is how you'll move that vibration out external, and it will reflect itself as air and fire or spiritual empowerment, you see. So that is how the two came together. The fire and the sun. We have the fire and the daughter and the sun. We have 3 levels of that. The ancestral level is Aries and Taurus. The pivotal level, the turning point level, the Trinity and Neil level is Leo and Virgo. And then the highest culmination in the fulfillment of the highest son and daughter is where we're dealing with Sagittarius and Capricorn. Capricorn is the ultimate daughter of integrity and character. Now that we did the fire axis, let's look at the daughter or the earth axis. Now, earth is internal, so it's already in a spiritual rotation. So we're going to start with that first sign, Taurus. For the earth, the daughter component. They took Taurus, the sign of values, and turned it into materialism, so that you gauge your value based on what you possess materially. Taurus is the sign of I possess. We're going to always be looking at everything in the contrast of the external physical illusion versus the internal spiritual reality. So this is where in the external physical illusion, they turned the Taurus, the sign of value, into materialism, so that you gauge your value based on what you possess materialistically. They're telling you in the last days, they're going to be throwing money in the street. It has no value, but that is how you earn your material power, through the work you do externally in your profession to earn your material power. But we are definitely in the last days as we know it. My spirit keeps telling me the Taurus and Scorpio axis of energy is where this all comes to a head, which means we're in Virgo now, and then we have Libra, and then we hit Scorpio. That is where things are getting ready to come to a head. So we are in the last days as we know it. And that's when they say we'll be throwing money in the street. It has no value. It only has an illusion of value. So now we got to go internal. You can't serve 2 masters as you go internal to that Taurus energy. And when we go internal to the Taurus energy, it equates to our own self-value and self-worth, the security from within, in our own self-value and our own self-worth, not looking outside of ourselves for others to define our value to us, being secure in our own value and self-worth. And this is based on the work you've done, the spiritual work you've done in your spiritual mastery through many lifetimes, where you have mastered in the purpose you chose to serve, when you were an energy being and you took that mission as an energy being. You said, I'll take that mission. But when you fell into the flesh, you forgot your mission. But your spirit didn't forget. Your spirit is the one who will pave the way for you to walk the path, for you, to be confronted with the challenges of fulfilling that spiritual purpose and destiny, only so you can see your capability to overcome those challenges for your growth. So each lifetime you mastered by overcoming those challenges by the guidance of your spirit. And every lifetime is where you completed a spiral, giving you access to the next lifetime where you continued that mastery of that purpose and giving you access to the next lifetime. And we did this all the way until we got into the Aquarius age, because Aquarius being the sign of evolution. Now it's time to evolve. We've balanced on enough levels. Now we bring that mastery from each lifetime to the table whenever we get into the Aquarian age, as this collective contribution to this universal purpose being fulfilled, the one and all and the all in one. And your soul's journey in your mastery, as guided by your spirit through many lifetimes, all the way up into the Aquarian age, when it's time for our evolution. Aquarius, the sign of evolution, and it's balanced with Leo, creative rulers. So the evolution of a new creative rulership out of the abuse of power to a humanitarian empowerment. Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian. But you have to know your power. Aquarius, I know. You have to know your power in order to activate that power. Leo, the fire, activating that power, the opposite sign of Aquarius. So knowing your power to activate the power for this evolution, Aquarius, out of the abuse of power to this humanitarian empowerment, which is Aquarius energy. So that is where we're at in the major scheme of things. We're at that crossroads where we're now coming to our knowing. That is where Leo plays the role as the sun. The sun is always full exposure. So the evolution, Aquarius, of Leo, the sun, the resurrection of the sun, exposing everything that has been hidden subconsciously in antiquity, internal, mama's domain, the subconscious, now exposing what's been hidden for full clarity and exposure for this evolution of new righteous rulers out of this abuse of power, you see. So that is what the Aquarian age brings to the table, the evolution of a new righteous rulership out of the abuse of power, as the ancient rulers, our ancestors, are now passing us the baton as the new age rulers to evolve from the abuse of power, which the powers that have reached their maximum of their corrupted abuse of power at a global level, which we experienced in the last 4 or 5 years. The intimidation through doubts, fears, and guilt to keep you lowered in your vibration, in this illusion. Now that we're waking up and pulling our energy away from this illusion, we're blowing holes in the illusion. It no longer has the power to sustain itself. And this is how Humpty Dumpty is falling off the wall. And I've always said they depict Humpty Dumpty as an egg because he has a fragile position of power, because it's not real. It's based on an illusion. But we're now waking up because everything is being exposed as to who is really, operating under a corrupted abuse of power. That is now being exposed so that we can now step up as righteous rulers, humanitarian rulers, as the ancient ancestors The ancient rulers are now passing us the baton as the new age rulers for this evolution from the abuse of power at a global level to a humanitarian and righteous rulership. When we cross over that 180 degrees, that physical half, and that's where we're at that crossroads, where we're hopping the fence. You don't blend energy. Everybody has their own unique role and contribution to this holistic process, the one and all and the all in one. Your reality is no more wrong or right than anyone else's. We've all mastered through these lifetimes as guidance by our spirit to come to this mastery of the purpose we chose to serve as our contribution to this holistic purpose that is now being fulfilled. So no, there is no one way for anybody. Everybody has their own unique contribution and role and contribution to this holistic purpose being fulfilled, the one and all and the all in one. But we come together and harmonize as one, not blend as one. Harmonize because we each have something different to bring to the table as our spirit has guided us through our mastery to make our contribution to this holistic process when we get into the Aquarian age, when it's time for our evolution. So we've hopped the fence now to the spiritual half of this operation. And when we go beyond the 180-degree physical half, now on the opposite spiritual half, now we get to the planetary level. This is where we get to the planetary level after the global level. The planetary level, this is where we're dealing with the earth, the moon, the sun, and all the planets. That is the planetary level of energy, vibration. So that is after the global on the spiritual half. So this is where we get to this daughter earth, daughter character, Capricorn energy, where daughter earth, Capricorn is the real Cinderella. That is why we're giving this message to symbolize this message through the Cinderella story, because that is daughter Earth's story. That is the planet Earth, daughter Earth's story, the Cinderella story. She is a cardinal sign. We have 3 cross levels. You guys already know that. This is what I'm teaching in the class, how to understand these levels, how to group this energy, to understand what level and what energy you're working with and what it means to work with this energy. So when we're dealing with the planetary level, daughter Earth level, the planetary, we're dealing with where that is the Cinderella story. When we're looking at the cardinal cross, we're dealing with Aries opposite Libra and Cancer opposite Capricorn. That is the cardinal cross. That is the royal energy. That is what activates and initiates this royal empowerment from the highest vibrations of the universe. The cardinal cross is what activates this new royal empowerment. It activates, it starts it off. So we start with Aries, the cardinal fire. Fire is the sun. The sun, the cardinal royal sun is the prince, Aries. The cardinal water, the royal water is mama, the queen, Cancer. And the cardinal air. The air is always the father, so the royal father, the king, Libra. Then we get to the cardinal earth. That's the daughter component. Daughter earth. Capricorn energy. But she's the only one who hadn't reached her sacred status. We had the prince with Aries, the queen with Cancer, the king with Libra. The only one who hadn't reached her royal status was the princess through Capricorn energy, because she is daughter earth. She is the rejected stone who becomes the cornerstone. It's in her rejection and redemption the earth is transformed. Daughter earth. She has been rejected in her value. because we have been in the land of illusion in this physical half. She is daughter character, a Capricorn energy. But Capricorn is also the energy of rejection, that rejected stone. And the reason she's been rejected in her value, and remember, Earth is the energy of value, and Capricorn is the last Earth sign. So the ultimate value, daughter Earth, the high priestess, the princess. But she's been rejected in her value because we've been in the physical land of illusion. And character is not respected. She is daughter character. Character is not respected in the land of illusion. That is why she was put at the bottom of the totem pole in her value in the physical illusion as daughter character, because in the opposite spiritual, she is of the highest value, the high priestess, the princess. And we've been in the physical half, the illusionary half, and character has been rejected in the land of illusion, put at the bottom of the totem pole in her value as daughter character. The reason she is daughter character, because her planetary ruler is Saturn. Saturn is the father at the planetary level. He's the energy of the father at the planetary level. Saturn. He is the Lord of karma. He is the one who chastises, restricts, and limits all of us just to test us, to see if we're going to overcome those restrictions and limitations by staying true to our integrity and our character. That is how we pass the test of Saturn, or the father of karma. So he's harder on Capricorn than any other of the signs because he's that direct ruler. So that is why she is daughter character, the daughter of integrity and character, who has been put at the bottom of the totem pole in this physical illusion. Because in the opposite reflection, she is of the highest value, the high priestess, the princess. She said that the highest peak of the astrological cycle, like the 12 o'clock hand at the winter solstice, the high priestess, the mountain goat, who has to climb that mountain surefoot and steady while other signs are running up that mountain. But the minute she abuses her integrity, she's immediately chastised by her planetary ruler, Saturn. And that is why she has to climb up surefoot and steady. But by the time she reaches the top of that mountain, the peak, the highest peak, others are falling down. She's built a proper foundation to stay up there for good as the daughter of integrity and character. And not only that, being put at the bottom of the totem pole in the physical illusion, spirit is spiral. So now that we've completed the physical half, it's time to go to hop the fence to the spiritual half. So those that are at the bottom are now spiraling most to the top. Who's ever most at the bottom is now spiraling most to the top in this transformation when it comes to the value of our energy, now transforming from the bottom to the top. That is why daughter Earth is the Cinderella energy, from the bottom to the top. That is what Cinderella means, the servant girl who marries the prince and becomes the queen, from the bottom to the top. We're looking at energy. We're defining that energy through the Cinderella story. That is how energy operates, from the bottom to the top. Those most at the bottom in the physical illusion are the ones who will now spiral most to the top as we're now transforming that energy. Scorpio's role, transforming that energy, regenerating that energy from the bottom to the top. The Cinderella energy, the servant girl who ends up becoming the queen in her marriage to the prince. That is the Cinderella story, daughter Earth story. And that is why we're referencing the daughter Earth story. You know, now we're looking at the fixed cross, where we get Aquarius opposite Leo as the vertical leg of the fixed cross, and we get Taurus and Scorpio as the horizontal leg of that fixed cross, where, of course, Aquarius, the evolution, of New Age rulers, Leo. But in order to evolve Aquarius as New Age rulers on the fixed cross, there has to be a transformation, Scorpio, of our values and habits, Taurus. That is what the fixed cross brings to the table. I call Taurus and Scorpio the Lot's wife axis of energy. You can't take old values and habits from a mundane level to a royal level. So, in order for us to evolve as these new age rulers, Aquarius and Leo, we have to be transformed, Scorpio, in our values and habits. That is what the fixed cross brings to the table. It reverses the energy from a mundane physical illusion of power to a spiritual, creative, and royal empowerment. And that's why the evolution occurs, like I said, in the Aquarian age, as we're going through this transformation of our value to Taurus and Scorpio. And once the fixed cross has done its work, then it leads us to the mutable cross. This is where the cardinal cross activates and initiates this royal empowerment in the Aquarian age. The fixed cross is what sets it in motion or enforces it. And then the mutable cross will adapt us to a whole new level in reality of accessing the magic of Mama Universe. Anytime we're dealing with the threes, third time the charm, the magic. So the third cross, the mutable cross, where we now adapt to a whole new level as new rulers transformed and stepping up to be able to access the magic of Mama Universe. Third time the charm, the closer of this operation, the mutable cross, starting with using the threes. Third sign, Gemini, opposite the ninth sign, Sagittarius, the vertical leg of the mutable cross. Then we have the sixth sign, Virgo, opposite the 12th sign, Pisces. That is what makes up the mutable cross, the magical cross. As we look at Pisces, the water on the mutable cross or the magical cross. The water is the mama. So on the magical cross, so the magical mama is what equates to the fairy godmama of the Cinderella story. The fairy godmama through Pisces energy, the interest into the subconscious, your Akashic records, your ancient memory, antiquity. The ancient balancing with the new age. Everything is about the balance of opposites. If you understand the nature of the balance of opposites, there's nothing you can't understand. So now we have Pisces, the magical mama, the fairy godmama, who liberates Cinderella from her restrictions and her limitations through the magic of Mama Universe. So the magical mama, the 12th sign of the zodiac. That is why Cinderella symbolically had to be home by 12 o'clock in her magic, because Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. That is what you have to understand, the symbolism, where you come out of the literal way of seeing things. That is why spiritual language is symbolic, because you can use, there's a multitude of meanings under one symbol. So that is Pisces, the sign of the subconscious, the interest into our Akashic records, our ancient memory. As we now hop the fence back to the matriarchal half, everything started matriarchal. That is antiquity, mama's domain, the ancient of ancients, our ancient ancestors who had powers. This is who they patterned the superheroes after, our ancient ancestors. They could fly, they could breathe underwater, they could talk telepathically with the plants, the animals, the universe, each other. We still have those powers, but they're subconscious, and we've been in the conscious realm. Now we've completed that half. And now it's time to come back full spirals. Everything started matriarchal, antiquity, mama's domain, where our ancient ancestors had these powers and this magic. But spirit is spiral. So it spiraled from the matriarchal half, where it became external, to the patriarchal half, air and fire. And anytime we get into the Aquarian age, that means it's come back full circle. Now it's time to balance between those two halves. Father spirit, the conscious realm, the air element, the spiritual realm, now able to balance with mama soul, the subconscious, the cosmic realm, the subconscious, the antiquity, the ancestry, now balancing with the new age, completing that major spiral for our evolution, connecting to our ancient ancestors and the powers of our ancient ancestors. Our spiritual ancestors are in the conscious realm, father's domain, the spiritual realm. Your spiritual ancestors are your spiritual, your loved ones that you're conscious of, who have made their transition in this lifetime. They are the ones who go on that spirit team as your entourage. They are the ones, your spiritual ancestors are the ones who have access to your ancient ancestors, or the soul realm. They're the ones who will bring the energy from the soul realm, or the subconscious, to the conscious realm, and then balance with the physical realm, or the physical vessels at ground level, to channel that energy, Gemini energy, to channel that vibration to that physical vessel, or that boot on the ground, who can then manifest that energy at ground level. So these are how we're harmonizing between the three realms, or we're getting ready to start harmonizing, as we bring the energy from the highest cosmic realm, mama's domain, to the spiritual realm, father's domain, our spiritual ancestors, who will then balance with the physical vessel, that family member, that boot on the ground, who then manifests that energy. So all we got to do now, as we're stepping up as the new rulers, is step up to our ancestors. Which one of my ancestors, spiritual or soul realm, have mastered in the creative power of creating music? Channel that vibration to me so I can manifest that energy at ground level. This is how we're stepping up to harmonize with the three levels as the new rulers for this new Aquarian age that is now blossoming, able to manifest that energy at ground level when it comes to your creative powers. It's the creative rulership that's ready to blossom, where the material one is falling. So stepping up to your creative powers by stepping up to your ancestors, channeling that energy. When we had, what was that, 2 Augusts ago, on August 5th, we had this scenario in Alabama, I think it was Alabama, where they were at a harbor. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. And where the man, they threw the cap in the air, and then all these people came, to rescue the man, the captain, that these people, were trying to beat up. And they came. This is a micro symbolism of what we're stepping up to as the vessels for our spiritual and ancient ancestors, to use us as a vessel to manifest this energy at ground level. That was a micro demonstration of that, as our ancestors all came and took those vessels that were at that harbor to come together for the well-being and the protection of Mama's family at ground level. This was a micro demonstration of what we're now stepping up to in a holistic agenda, as we now can step up to our ancestors, become the vessels for the energy of our ancestors. But all this is based on the spiritual principles of righteousness. That's the only way. This is how we're becoming warriors for justice, for righteousness, the Aries and Libra axis of energy. this first axis of energy, this is the path of becoming warriors for righteousness and justice. So that is going to be the dividing line now. Are you on the side of righteousness, or are you on the side of that corrupted abuse of power? That is where the division is going to occur. So that is the criteria. You have to be operating and fighting for the sake of what is right, for justice, balance, out of this abuse to this humanitarian empowerment. And this is the bigger story. We all know this already, but now it's time. I always tell people no reader can give you anything your spirit hasn't already given you. All we can do is lay it down, make it clear, and validate it. You already know this from your subconscious. It's now time to remember Asar. Remember from the subconscious. Bring those pieces back together. The last piece being his penis, the resurrection. And when the ultimate son of power comes to proving that he'll use his powers righteously without abusing them, that's when he's given that full benefit of his power. That's when he comes to the maximum of his collective power through Sagittarius or Asar, the ultimate son of power. And now he has the power to redeem the value of daughter Earth or daughter character, like in the movie The Matrix. Trinity resurrected Neo from the illusion of power. The women are the resurrectors, but in the second movie, Neo brings her back to life. He is the one who redeems her in her value as daughter character, as the daughter of integrity and character, who has been rejected in her value and put at the bottom of the totem pole. Now she is being redeemed by the ultimate son of power, who has proven he's going to use his powers righteously. Now he gets the full benefit of his power, and now he redeems daughter character. Sagittarius and Capricorn sits right next to each other at the winter solstice, like the 12 o'clock hand, the highest peak, the ultimate son of power, resurrecting in the abundance of power, being proven he'll use that power righteously, and now he has the power to redeem and lift up the daughter of character, who has been rejected in her value as Cinderella or daughter Earth or daughter character. So being redeemed in her value. You're seeing that now. You're seeing where the melanated woman, who has been the one most rejected in her value, is now starting to be redeemed in her value. We've been wondering when our men were going to come back to the table and validate our value. Well, that's what this whole story is about. The ultimate abuse of power with the son is not seeing his woman as equal to who he is, when it comes to his 180 degrees and her 180 degrees. The only way to complete that vortex, that 360-degree spiral, there has to be an equal match or an equal balance. So redeeming the value of his woman, lifting her up, redeeming her value. So the women resurrecting, they have to come back to the security of their value. We've been wounded. The men have been wounded in their ego, and the women has been wounded in their insecurity, being put at the bottom of the totem pole in their value. So that is the wounds that are being worked on to be healed. She has to resurrect him from his ego, his illusion. As long as he's an ego, he's going to stay in the matrix. He can't come out of the matrix in ego. And so she has to resurrect him as the high priestess. She has to come back to her value and her security as a high priestess. That is why Trinity came out of the matrix first. She came to the security of her value as a high priestess, so she could be used as a tool to resurrect her man from the matrix, resurrecting him from his ego. He can't come out of the ego. As she comes out as high priestess, she begins to set standards in the security of her value as a high priestess in the higher scheme of things. Now she challenges her man to rise to claim the love of the high priestess. And as he rises to claim the love of the high priestess, that is his resurrection. That is how he resurrects from his ego, the illusion of power in this matrix, because he's the most creative being of the universe, that fire element, the son of power, creative powers. He's the most creative being in the universe. And that is why he's become egotistic and think himself higher than his woman, who has been placed at the bottom of the totem pole in her value as daughter character, Cinderella, in this illusionary scheme of things. So he has to come back to the value of his woman, to see the equal value and redeem her, where she resurrects him by setting standards as high priestess. As he rises to the standards to claim the love of the high priestess, that means she has to come back to the security of her worth and her value. She has to recognize who she is in the larger scheme of things and not compromise her value. And as she comes back to the security of her value and challenge her man, you see, to rise to the standards, to claim the love of the high priestess, that is how he resurrects out of his ego, is released from the matrix, and now steps up in the righteousness of his power and redeems her value and lift her up. This same scenario has been played out in the Star of David, which occurred on November the 8th, 2003. There was a Star of David in the universe where all the planets made the configuration of a Star of David, but it was sitting on its side, showing you the three levels of this royal family of energy. The bottom level was the mother and the father, the moon and Saturn. The moon was in Taurus, Saturn, the father was in Cancer, the sign of unconditional love. And on the second level, you had the brother and the sister. The sister was Jupiter in Virgo, and the brother was Mars in Pisces. And then on the third level of the six-pointed star, the highest level, the sun, of course, on November the 8th, was in Scorpio. So the sun plays the role of Scorpio on the Star of David, and his counterpart was the daughter of character in the role of Chiron, the wounded healer, how to heal the wounds that were inflicted on us as a royal family. So the wounded healer, the Chiron in Capricorn as the daughter. And so in the Star of David, and I said, why the Star of David? It took me back to the David and Goliath story. How did David slay Goliath? So David is played by Scorpio, the sun. That is why symbolically, when they tell you this story, they say it's the young boy who slays Goliath, where all the men couldn't do it. That's just the symbolism, because the spiritual man is the father and the physical man is the son. So the son, David, the young boy, as distinct from the father, is the one who stepped up to slay Goliath with a slingshot, the stone of value. So on November the 8th, 2003, there was a lunar eclipse, the moon, the mama in Taurus, representing symbolically the slingshot. As the mama passes the stone, she comes back to her value and her character and integrity. The mama, the moon in Taurus, the sign of values. So she comes back to her value. And the slingshot represents, the lunar eclipse represents the slingshot. As she comes back to her value, the security in her value, that is how she passes that stone, the first earth sign, Taurus. She passes that stone of value to the sun, the opposite Scorpio in Scorpio, the sun in Scorpio, Taurus and Scorpio. So the mama passes the stone of value to the sun. Scorpio is the sign of transformation, activating his transformation. And that is how he then transformed. Scorpio is water, so that's love. Anytime we're dealing with water, Scorpio is where we bond in love. We come together as twin souls in Libra. And then the next energy after Libra, you have to come into balance with your spirit in Libra. Your mate has to come into balance with their spirit in Libra. And only then do you both come to your individual wholeness. And only then can the two come together as twin souls. And then the next energy is Scorpio, where the twin souls now bond in that love, the water element. And because Scorpio is an extreme sign, intense sign, the extremity and the intensity of that bonding of love of the twin souls is what activates the transformation. What the Mayans call the great crossover to the creative place of Sagittarius, where you step up to the abundance of that optimal creative empowerment. So that is the cycle. And like I said, right now we're in Virgo. Virgo is the last sign in the physical half. The first 6 signs are physical. The second 6 signs are spiritual. Neither one is no higher or lower than the other. Balance is the key to everything in the universe. The vessel needs a spirit just as much as the spirit needs the vessel. So the balance between the physical and the spiritual. But the last half of the spiritual half is Virgo. From Aries to Taurus to Gemini to Cancer to Leo and Virgo is the physical half. From Libra to Scorpio to Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces is the spiritual half. So Virgo is always going to be a pivotal point. And we're in Virgo right now. And this is the last cycle. So Virgo is where you pivoted, where you've been cleansed, purged, and purified. That's Virgo's role. Cleansed and purified of false values to the matrix. That is where you heal in your wisdom and unplug from the matrix. And in the elemental, that is where you step up to the integrity and the character of the Capricorn. From Taurus, self-value and self-worth, to Virgo, cleansing of false values to the matrix, and then to Capricorn, the highest integrity and character in the earth cycle of energy. So Virgo is where you're cleansed and purged and purified of false values to the matrix, healing your wisdom, the ascension from the physical half into the spiritual half through Virgo, through Libra. Now being cleansed and purified through Virgo, you can now step you can now get into that balance with your spirit through Libra. In the spiritual half of this operation. And once you've gotten in balance with your spirit and your mate has gotten balance with their spirit, you've come together as twin souls, that's when you go to Scorpio, where you now bond in that love and activate the transformation and cross you over to Sagittarius, the great creative place where you step up to that abundance of that power, collective power, and act and tap into your blessings, the Jupiter energy, the great beneficent. So that is the cycle we're in. And we're at the Virgo right now. So getting back to that Taurus and Scorpio, because in Virgo, and so now the Star of David, where the mama comes back to her value in Taurus and passes the stone of value to the sun in Scorpio. Activating his transformation, he then resurrects into righteous Father Spirit, who then redeems the value of daughter Earth. The opposite Father, Saturn in Cancer, to the Chiron in Capricorn. So from the father to the daughter, from Cancer to Capricorn. So he resurrects into righteous Father Spirit, Capricorn, the sign of Cancer, the sign of unconditional love. And then he is the one who will redeem the value of daughter Earth or daughter character, Capricorn, healing the wounds, Chiron, healing the wounded healer, redeeming her value, lifting her up. And this is what Spirit said to me. The opposite energy of white man is black woman. Opposite of black is white. The opposite of woman is man. So the opposite energy of white man is black woman. And in order for him to be up, she has to be down. How do you take him down? You simply lift her up. She automatically goes down. This is how this is how David, son David, Scorpio, slays the giant lie or Goliath, redeeming the value of character, redeeming the value of character. When he lifts her up, that is how you take down the energy of the white man. This is how Spirit explained it to me. So Taurus and Scorpio keeps coming up. And we've already done the Taurus. And then Scorpio is only 6 months from Taurus. And right now, like I said, we're in Virgo, the cleansing purification phase, where we're now ready to ascend into the spiritual half in Libra, where we can now get into that equal and balanced partnership with our own spirit, come to our individual Christhood. Our mate does the same, coming together then as twin souls, then activating the transformation and stepping up to Sagittarius or Asar, the resurrection of the last piece of that 14 piece that he was cut into was his penis. The resurrection of that collective power in the abundance of power, redeeming the value of character. The ultimate son proving that he will use his powers righteously, and now being endowed with his full powers, and now him redeeming the value of character. Daughter Earth. That is the bigger universal story. That is why the class is important, because understanding energy is how you look at the larger story. You're looking at different levels through energy and how it vibrates from one end to the opposite end. We have to be flexible enough to follow our spirit from one end to the opposite end. Anytime you get in one position, this is who I am, this is who I'm not, this is what I do, this is what I don't do, that is your stagnation. That's a repercussion of your wounding in the physical half, in the wounding or the negative polarity half. That's the stagnation. You have to be limber enough to follow your spirit from one end to the opposite end. Your spirit is going to say, dig a ditch 10 feet deep. And when you finish digging that ditch 10 feet deep, your spirit will say, now build a tower 10 feet high. Your spirit is always going to operate in the balance of opposites. Two halves make a whole, holistic. If it's not whole, it's not real. So your spirit is going to take you from one end to the opposite end. And you have to be limber enough to follow your spirit from one end to the opposite end. And, so that is how this is all coming together in this larger holistic purpose, redeeming the value of character, challenging, power to be used only in righteousness, in order to gain full benefit of that power. So redeeming, stepping up in that power of righteousness, and then redeeming character. The ultimate son and daughter, Sagittarius or Asar, Capricorn or daughter Earth, at the peak of the astrological cycle, the 12 o'clock hand at the winter solstice. And this is exactly what happened in the Super Bowl. Y'all know I do the symbolism of the Super Bowl. We dealt with Taurus and Scorpio in the Super Bowl. Kansas City played the role of Taurus, and then Philadelphia played the role of Scorpio, transforming the value of new laws, because the laws were created in Philadelphia. So transforming the abuse of that corrupted power through the law, in our colonization. So that is where the Taurus and Scorpio shows you how it's time now to transform the value of new laws. And this was symbolized, as I did in that Super Bowl symbolism, this symbolizes the 14th Amendment. Follow the 14 pieces of a star, the resurrection of his penis, you see. And the 14th Amendment, which had been corrupted by Lyndon Baines Johnson, who included everybody having a child in America, get birthright citizenship. So that is what has been transformed. This is what Trump did, not giving any credit or taking away anything. It's not about the vessel, it's about how the vessel is being used by spirit. So transforming the 14th Amendment, which was corrupted by Lyndon Baines Johnson, who included everybody, who could have a child in America and get birthright citizenship. Well, Trump struck that down and took it back to the pure meaning of the 14th Amendment, which only applies to the melanated people, who are really the true birthright people of the Americas. So this was spiritual. This was not something that Trump knew to do or was conscious of or what he was doing. This is what he was influenced to do as a tool to serve a spiritual purpose, to bring back the 14th Amendment to its true state of protecting the value of the real indigenous people of America as the only birthright citizens of America. So that is the symbolism. That is how this literal played out symbolically to serve a spiritual purpose, the 14th Amendment being transformed, eliminating anybody qualifying and only targeting the melanated people of America, who are the original indigenous people of America, which is the most ancient land on the planet. So all this is now being exposed, coming into clarity. The sun, the resurrection of Leo, the sun, when it comes to the evolution of Aquarius and Leo, everything being exposed that has been hidden, now being exposed, the perpetrators now being exposed, so they can be cleansed and purged, so we can heal and we can step up as the new, now healed, transformed, and righteous rulers of the Aquarian age, out of the abuse of power to a humanitarian empowerment. And this is how, where, like I said, on the cardinal cross, daughter Earth was the only one who hadn't reached her sacred status. But now that she's being redeemed in her value, she's been crowned as the princess. And that now completes us as a royal family. Now we have the prince through Aries, the queen through Cancer, the king through Libra, and now we have the princess being crowned through Capricorn. That completes us as a royal family. That takes us to a star system level. And that is how daughter Earth now, as in her royal status, becomes a comparable mate for Anubis of the Sirius star system. Our ancient energy, ancestral energy on the Sirius star system. We've just fulfilled the new age star system, and the balance and the marriage between daughter Earth and Anubis, the dog star. Now that she's been crowned, now she becomes a comparable mate for Anubis of the Sirius star system, our ancient energy. This is how we're balancing star systems. Our ancient ancestral energy now balancing with this new age energy or rulership of the Aquarian age. This is how we balance star system. This is how this energy will reverberate throughout the cosmos. So this is the bigger story, the whole story. We've been only seeing pieces, Reese's pieces, but it's not until you put all those pieces together that you see the whole. And only when you see the whole do you see the real. Whenever you're looking at a part of the whole, that's the illusion. We've been in the land of illusion. We've now hopped that fence. We've now completed half. And once you complete half, then all you have to do is know what is the opposite reflection of that half to understand the whole or the holistic. So this is the bigger story. That is why you need to understand this information. That is what this class will give you, the fundamentals of understanding how to group this energy so you can see the story come together. Right now, all we know is we're being bombarded with energy, and it's hard to make sense of how we've been bombarded with energy. So this is how we put it into a structure and tell the story at a planetary level through the Cinderella story, so that we can understand the bigger purpose that is being fulfilled in symbolism. By seeing the bigger story, you have to look at energy. To see the bigger story. That is why I do the symbolism of the Super Bowls, because that's where the rituals are done, where you get a collective of people focusing and pooling their energy to energize what it is they wanted to unfold for the year. As we pool our energy collectively through these Super Bowls, the Olympics, wherever you get a collective of people, the more collective of people pooling their energy and focusing, the more you're energizing from what they're playing out, as their rituals to capture our energy, to get us to participate and energize what they want to unfold in energy. But now we're seeing the bigger picture, the bigger purpose, and now we're pulling our energy from that illusion, that matrix, and that's why it's now falling. It's falling. What we're seeing now is the fall of Babylon. We have already hopped that fence at the past winter solstice, and that culmination. What we saw Kendrick Lamar do in the halftime, he showed the redeeming of the value of the woman. With Caesar, with what's her name, Serena Williams. And he even went all the way back to Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye, which represents Aries and Taurus energy. Like I said, that ancestral wounding, Taurus and Aries and Taurus, which represent that first couple, fire and earth, our ancestors, and how we were wounded as a couple, as the ancestors, demonstrating that first couple through Aries and Taurus. He even went back to that because Tammy Terrell, being abused in her value, she was Taurus, and she was abused by her men, raped at 12, 13, somewhere at that age by 4 guys, and then James Brown, abusing her, and then what's his name? I think it was David Ruffin, also abused her, and the only one who gave her the value and the dignity was Marvin Gaye, and he was the only one that was allowed to come to her funeral when she passed away at 24, because he was the only one that, appreciated or redeemed her in her value, where the other men abused her. So that's what it's about, bringing the men out of their ego, abusing the value of their woman, thinking them higher than their woman, and the woman coming back to the security of her value and worth. This is the larger scheme, where the individual aspects of this larger collective purpose that is unfolding, and we're at the end process of this whole operation. Like I said, it's Taurus and Scorpio, and we're just Virgo, Libra, and then we get to Scorpio. That's where this thing will come to a head, like indicated in the Star of David and indicated in the Super Bowl between Taurus and Scorpio. So that is the reason for these lessons. That is learning those fundamentals, understanding how to group this energy. Who are the cardinal signs? Who are the fixed signs? Who are the mutable signs? Who are the fire signs? Who are the water signs? Who are the air signs? Who are the earth signs? What are their persona at a larger level? The air is always the father. The fire is always the son. The Water is always the mama, and the earth is always the daughter, a full family of energy. Your family on the physical as the step family, now coming into balance with our highest energy collective family, identified through the four elements. You get no higher perspective than the four elements. So understanding the class is giving you that understanding of the fundamentals. It's broken down into two parts. You have the fundamentals of astrology, where you're learning how to group these energies, how to put what where, how to put structure to the energy, to understand what those energy means, what is the planetary energy of those signs, what is the house energy of those signs, getting all those fundamentals, understanding what those energies are bringing to the table. And then as you understand the fundamentals, as you get that down your belt, then the second class is going to be where you begin to utilize that information. Everybody is going to have their own unique perspective on what they get from understanding astrological energy. That is why it's hard to explain, because everybody is going to have their own personal perspective as guided by their spirit, which is going to be most beneficial for them as they fulfill their spiritual purpose and destiny. That's why your reality is no more wrong or right than my reality. Everybody has their own unique role and contribution. It's too big for just one aspect. That's physical. When you're dealing with the one, spirit is always collective. You have to pull that energy. So coming together as one in harmonization, not blending as one, coming together as one, because everybody has a unique purpose, and only your spirit can give you that guidance through many lifetimes, and only your spirit can step you up to this next level. And that's going to be personal for each and every one of us as to how your spirit unfolds this information to you through understanding astrological energy. That is how your spirit is going to guide you through the symbolism of understanding astrological energy. And everybody's going to have their own unique take. So it's difficult to define, one way of operation. You can't do that. Everybody's going to have their own take as they learn the fundamentals. That is where the second course comes in, where they then utilize what they've learned through the fundamentals. That is where you step out on your own and begin to operate. The last class in the second half, the very last class of the final exam, is you doing your own ritual. So how you're taking that information that your spirit has unfolded for you in understanding, and how you take that understanding of how your spirit gave it to you, and then how you make it work for you, as you start operating, using the knowledge of that information to influence, and activate your own rituals, you see. So that's what the second course is going to do. It's going to, once you learn the fundamentals, then you get into the flow. And that is where you take off on your own with that information and begin, using that information in your own unique understanding as to how you can step up and start becoming an active participant in creating your own reality. No one has more power than you do to create your own reality, but you have to know that in order for you to step up to that. So this is what the class is going to do. It's going to break down the information when it comes to understanding astrological energy, grouping them where you can make sense of what they mean and what their role is, what they contribute to this holistic process. And once you get that understanding on your belt, then you become a vessel to harmonize with that energy in influencing, how you are creating your own reality. Y'all know my famous phrase, hammer time. You can't touch this, because I know the source of my power. And I now am stepping out as hammer time. Nothing, you can't touch this. And my clients has brought back to me, when I told them about when I step up on an airplane, and I look around at the people and I talk to them telepathically and I tell them how fortunate they are to be on an airplane with me, a royal being. Because I'm on that plane, it's going to be protected. And they will be protected in lieu of that. That is when you're walking in the knowing versus knowing. It's not enough just to know. That is what the fundamentals is going to do. It's going to give you the knowledge of spiritual astrology. But then the second course is going to be walking in the knowing. It's the difference in knowing and walking in the knowing. So that is what the second course is going to give you, how to walk in the knowing after you learn the fundamentals, you see. So stepping up in the security, earth and water, stepping up in the security of what you feel internally. And when you're secure in the value of who you are in the larger scheme of things and how you'll send that vibration out external and it will reflect itself externally as air and fire or spiritual empowerment. So I've given you a multitude of levels. Once we go from the planetary level, then we go to a universal level. And from the universal level, we go to a star system level. These are all the levels we have the ability to balance energy and ascend those levels. From one end, your personal balance with your own spirit, all the way up to the highest collective, a star system level. So those are the range that we have to ascend by balancing energy or completing those spirals, 180 degrees on each half, completing that spiral, open up a vortex to ascend to the next level, completing that spiral to ascend to the next level, all the way from the individual balance with your spirit, all the way up to a star system level. That is the full range of our ability to harmonize energy in the universe and ascend into who we are as the true righteous rulers of a humanitarian rulership. From an abuse of power, the only sin there is, to a humanitarian empowerment. That is what is going on. That is the larger purpose being fulfilled. And your understanding of this process is how you're able to step up and participate with this. So I hope that is what I've given you, what you wanted, Melanie, as far as what you wanted me to tell the class, you see. But I am certainly, appreciative of everyone who is stepping up, and taking this class. It's going to be truly beneficial for you because you're going to get a bigger understanding. You're going to start seeing who you are and what everything is from an energy perspective. The physical body is the least of this operation. It's the least influence of this whole operation. It's all about your energy, from you as a vessel of energy all the way up to the highest vibration, that collective family of energy, but spiral. So from the highest to the lowest and back full spiral to the highest again. That's what this operation is about when it comes to energy, from the physical to the spiritual. Wherever you balance opposites is where you create that vortex. That's the formula of creation, the balance of opposites, as above, so below, as within, so without, masculine, feminine, physical, spiritual, male, female. Everything is about the balance of opposites. Two halves make a whole, but they have to come together equally, 180 degrees on each half. That is why our men aren't going to be able to step up, without their women. They have to come together in balance. And that is somebody you've already created a love relationship with through many lifetimes. This is just the lifetime to manifest that love. So if you have to come back full spiral to your energy partner as energy beings, where you have had many lifetimes cultivating that love relationship, but you had to do it on an unequal basis, so that at this time we all come back together full circle, each in balance as yin and yang. And it's when the yin and yang comes into balance that the evolution occurs. So that's where we're at in the larger scheme of things, as it's connected to each one of us individually and our universe of energy within. So I guess that's it, as far as what what this topic of the blueprint of astrology is about. You see, so okay, you might you I can't hear you. Can't hear you. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for breaking this down. My major question was,
Mhm.
why is astrology so important? And not basically, you broke down the what, the when, the why, the how, the where, everything, and
Yeah.
told us the complete story using
Yeah.
astrology, right?
Yes. Yes.
I love how you explain it, how you personify it,
Yes.
because that's what makes it easy to understand.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
thank you so much for sharing that. I have a couple of questions that
Sure.
I want you to share because people
Okay.
don't know this.
Okay.
So last year you taught the class fully live,
Yes.
and I asked if you would do it again, and you said, "Oh, I don't know." Please, Sister Myra, there's a huge waiting list. Everyone wants you to teach this class again, and we proceeded to prepare the class. Um, when we were doing the edits of the book, you said something to me and it really struck me. And you said, "Melanie, we have to get this right. This is my legacy."
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I want you to share with everyone here. People don't know you have a course. That's the first thing.
Okay.
What is this course? What do you mean by this is your legacy? Can you please share that with us?
Well, how I really got into this is when I was living in North Carolina. And when I was living in North Carolina, um, you know, when my spirit broke me away from my hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, I moved to Atlanta, and that's where I started, on my spiritual path. Um, um, Working at Serious Books and Tapes, or Cultural Communication, which was a metaphysical center. And then I ended up doing a radio program with Brother Akhenaten every first Tuesday of the month. And that's when, my notoriety started expanding. And When I moved from Atlanta, Spirit actually pushed me to move from Atlanta. I stayed there 15 years, and then I moved to North Carolina. I always tell everybody North Carolina is where I got my lessons in magic. They taught me magic in North Carolina. Everything that happened to me in North Carolina was how Mama was proving her magic to me. And I had been begging Spirit, even for a part-time job, but it kept saying no. And at one point, I did get a part-time job, but it didn't last but a few months. And I only got like a day's notice when that job ended. And so I had just moved to a larger apartment because my son had moved to town with me. My son that made his transition in 2013, we were living together in North Carolina. My oldest son, the Virgo, and he came to live with me in North Carolina. So that's why I moved to a larger apartment, thinking I had this job. But then I went into work and they said, well, nope, they were going to let me go. So now I'm concerned because, I just moved to a larger apartment with my son, and I didn't know, didn't have any income. And so I'm standing at the kitchen sink, washing dishes, thinking about what I'm going to do. And it was like Big Mama walked up behind me. And Big Mama said to me, "You work for me now." And, you know, so I didn't actually understand what it meant, but she said, "You work for me now." She said, "In the beginning, I don't pay a lot of money, but my friends' benefits are out of this world, you see." So that is when I had the inspiration to sit down and write this course. So I feel it was an inspiration to write this course on astrology because people have been asking me, about teaching the course. So I was now in that position without a job, and being influenced by Big Mama. "You work for me now." So that is when I sat down and began to write this course on the fundamentals of astrology, as well as, like I said, the soul astrology, the second half of the course. And so, you know, that is how I was enlisted to do it. When I first got into astrology, it was like everybody was saying, "What's your sign?" What's your sign? When that first started happening, when people first started getting into astrology. And I tell everyone that, me as a Capricorn, I thought my sign was a little boring. You know, I've come to appreciate my sign very much since then. But at the time, in the beginning, I thought it was a boring sign. So I ended up studying all the signs. That is how I got a holistic view, studying all the signs. And it's not until you get a holistic view that you begin to see the real. So that is how my path took off. And when I decided I was going to take this path of astrology, um, I said to Spirit, and like I said, nobody creates your reality more than you do. I said to Spirit, "I want to be the best astrologer there ever was." That is what I said to Spirit, you see. And then I let it just unfolded. It just took a life of its own. And Spirit led me. I'm a Capricorn. Capricorn is the ultimate receiver. Each element picks up differently. Fire picks up through intuition. Air picks up through direct communication with spirit. Water picks up through the subconscious. But earth picks up through their sensitivity. Capricorn is the last earth sign. So the ultimate in sensitivity when it comes to spiritual energy. So we are the ultimate receiver. Where Libra, the cardinal air, is the ultimate transmitter. Capricorn, the cardinal earth, is the ultimate receiver. So I'm very sensitive to spiritual energy. Capricorn is the princess of the royal family of energy. And I always ask people, I say, why is the princess always the one most loved in the royal family? The princess is always the one most loved in the royal family. That is because the princess, representing as Capricorn energy, the most sensitive sign of the zodiac, the ultimate receiver, is the one most sensitive to the needs of the people of the kingdom. This is the nature of the story of the Princess and the Pea, where they put the pea under the mattress of the princess and it feels like a lump, you see. That's the symbolism of the Princess and the Pea. She is very sensitive to the needs of the people of the kingdom. This is the Cinderella story, how the the Cinderella brings the prince to his character, his sensitivity. He's about to become the king. He has to take a bride, but he's wrestling because he doesn't know what to do with the power as the king. So he doesn't even want to be the king because he don't know what to do with the power as king. So it's Cinderella as daughter character who tells him, just think, this is what the Cinderella story is about, how She brings the prince out of his ego, Leo energy, where she's Capricorn. There's an angle between Leo and Capricorn that causes disruption. And that doesn't mean a bad disruption. Capricorn is the sign of character, and Leo is the sign of the ego. So character disrupting the ego of the prince, daughter character. Or Leo being the sign of joy and Capricorn being the sign of seriousness. So joy disrupting the seriousness of Capricorn. That's how that works. That disruption works. So this is the Cinderella story, Capricorn as Cinderella and the prince as Leo. So she's disrupting him from his ego, where he has to, where he's very arrogant, when it comes to his status as the prince. And she is the servant girl who pretends, to be of royalty so she can rescue one of the servants that the stepmother had sold away that belonged to her father before he passed away. So she pretended to be a princess, or she pretended to be a royal daughter, and to get this servant released. And that is where she runs up on the prince, and where the prince, helps her get that servant released. So once he does that, she tries to walk off. I'm telling everybody, watch the Cinderella story. The one that I like the most is called Ever After. Ever After. And that's the one that's most realistic, and this is where you'll get this perspective from, called Ever After. And so when the prince, when she gets the servant release, she tries to run away. She tries to run away because she doesn't want to be discovered that she's really, a servant girl. But the prince follows after her, and and he says, well, what is your name? And she doesn't want to give the name. She doesn't want to give up any information. So she's trying to be evasive. And so the prince goes, well, she says, well, I'm just here staying with my cousin. And he says, well, who is your cousin? And she just doesn't want to tell him. And so he says, I really need to find out, because when the prince asked her to explain why they should release the servant, she quoted this book, Utopia, that her father, the last book her father had given to her before he died, and in order to express why he needed to release the servant. So when he follows after her and he says, anybody who can quote Utopia, I deserve to know who they are. So that's what stopped her from backing up. The negative polarity is the feminine polarity. Our power comes in backing up. We can bring the positive polarity, or the masculine polarity, forward. That's what they have reversed, you see. So she was the only one backing away from the prince, while all the other women of the kingdom were pushing up on him. And he was pretty bored with that, you see. But he was intrigued with her because she was backing away. And the reason she was backing away is when he said, oh, so you read the book Utopia. She said, oh, you read it? She said, yes. That's what stopped her from backing up from the prince, when he admitted he had read the book Utopia. And she said, he said, but I found it really droll. And she go, oh, well, I guess you don't associate much with the peasants. And he goes, well, of course not. So she starts to run away again, because she's appalled at his arrogance and his ego. And he's stumped by that. He's like, you running away from me, the prince? He said, are you calling me arrogant? And she goes, well, yeah. She said, you released one man, but you didn't even glance at the others, and so, at this time, the queen comes out. He's distracted by the queen, so she runs away. But they keep meeting up. And each time they meet up, she's still running away from him, because every time he demonstrates his ego and his arrogance, she gets upset with him. So they finally start sneaking off on their own. And at one point, they run up on these gypsies and they party with the gypsies. And this is where they play a game. And he admits to her, I really don't want to be the king because I don't even know what to do with the power of the king. And she said, well, just think what you could do, for the whole kingdom, not just the royal part of the kingdom, what you can do for everybody in the kingdom, even the peasants in the kingdom. You have the power to make their life better, so this gets him inspired. This gets him thinking. Now he goes to the king and he's saying things like, Father, why don't we build a university all stations of life can attend? Father, why don't we pay our servants? Why don't we do this? And he's starting to think of many ways that he can be of benefit to everybody in the kingdom, not just the royal people of the kingdom. So that is the story of Cinderella, her sensitivity to all the people of the kingdom, and how she imparts that to the prince, and how he now becomes a king for everybody in the kingdom, even the peasants, not just the royal people. That's the nature of the Cinderella story. So picking up through our sensitivity, that's what the prince's role is, to be sensitive and to impart that sensitivity to the prince, bringing him out of his ego so he has compassion and love, for all the people of the kingdom. That is the nature of the Cinderella story. That is the Daughter Earth story. That is me as Capricorn. I call myself the quintessential Cinderella. So my sensitivity to this energy, in seeing the holistic story, and in my role as Cinderella, and how I got into it, and how it started opening up to me until I began to see the bigger picture, the bigger story, and I started picking up information that I wasn't hearing or seeing from others, So as of late, that's when people started saying to me, I think you're the best astrologer I've ever known. So it's come full circle where I asked, I want to be the best astrologer ever known. Well, now I've been getting that feedback from others, you see. So this is a example of how, you put that energy out, and energize it into your reality. And how you manifest that energy. The reason I call myself the quintessential Cinderella, we're always looking at the balance of opposites. And what I do is epitomize. Capricorn is the sign of rejection, the rejected stone who becomes the cornerstone. It's in her rejection and redemption the earth is transformed. So I played the role of Cinderella, but it's even in my chart. My chart, because I have a natural chart, which means Aries, my first house, my first energy. My Capricorn sits in my 10th house, the natural house of Capricorn. So when I look in my chart at my energy, I see the Cinderella story. My first astrologer told me about the three stop signs, you see. Aries and Libra is like the stepsisters with a 90-degree angle, challenging Cinderella, and then the stepmother Cancer energy in opposition to Cinderella Capricorn. So I see that in my chart when I look at my energy in my chart. So my Cinderella role had to do with dark skin. It's the epitome of dark and light. It's trying to symbolize the balance between dark and light. So Cinderella, the reason they called her Cinderella, they said she sat close to the fireplace to read and got soot on her face. But the real symbolism is that in this universal story, Cinderella was the dark-skinned sister. She was the dark-skinned one. The internal, the kingdom of the dark, the hidden kingdom. But she was in the kingdom of the light. She was from the kingdom of the dark, the internal, earth and water. But she was in the kingdom of the light, air and fire, the prince's domain. That is why she was not recognized as a princess, but as a servant girl, as the dark skinned one in the kingdom of the light. That is how she became the servant girl, Cinder. Cinder means carbon or black. El is the title of divinity, and La is feminine, the black divine feminine, the Cinderella, the epitome of dark versus light. How the dark, was not valued in the kingdom of the light, as Cinderella, as the servant girl. And she had to redeem her own value from within, which is Taurus energy, where you redeem your own value from within. And so that's what happened to me, where those wounds were generationally passed down, because my mama was the darkest in her family. She was the baby of 10 children. And her mama favored the older, lighter skinned people over her, siblings over her. And that's how she passed that wound to me emotionally. I had a light skinned older sister, a light skinned baby sister, and my brother was the only boy. So I'm in the middle as the darkest. So I was the sacrificial lamb, the wound of being the dark skinned one that my mama passed down to me, as she was wounded as the dark skinned one in her family. So the epitome of my rejection as the dark skinned one, you see. And then at one point, we would go out in public, and my baby sister, the people would run up to her in public and go, "Oh, isn't she pretty? She is just so pretty." And they would look at me and they go, "Oh, well, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice." So my baby sister wasn't really prettier than me. She was just lighter skinned than me. This is epitomizing light versus dark. That's all. It's not, and about how I was rejected, as a symbolism of the epitome of the Cinderella story. And when one day I had an epiphany, and I said, well, you know what? I like my color. And if others don't like my color, then that's their problem. And from this day forward, I will never let anyone make me feel bad about who I am based on their opinion of me. And that's why I walked in my security ever since. And then when I moved to Atlanta and North Carolina, in those days, we were doing in-house presentations. So I had a circuit from New York all the way down to Florida. And everywhere I went in those circuit presentations from New York to Florida, the light-skinned mothers would bring their dark-skinned daughters to me to see a woman, dark-skinned, secure in her beauty and her value, so they could identify with that. Because that's something a light-skinned mother couldn't give to her dark-skinned daughter. Even my niece, because my oldest sister was light-skinned, but she married a dark-skinned man, and she had 2 dark-skinned daughters. And my niece told me the same thing. She said, I thought I was ugly. Because now I'm growing up in the 50s now. Remember, this is when these things were really prevalent, the 50s and the 60s. And so my niece says, I thought I was ugly with my dark skin until I saw you and your beauty. And that's what made me understand my beauty as well. So that is what the Chiron is about. The Chiron in Capricorn, the wounded healer, the one who is wounded. And as she heals from those wounds, that is how she able to help others see how to heal from those same type of wounds. That is what your Chiron is. So wherever you have been rejected in your value, I epitomize the dark versus the light, but it don't have to be that. You may have been too light skinned. You may have been too fat, too thin, too tall. Whatever reason, the external world had to reject you in your value is where you're playing the Cinderella role. Wherever your Capricorn is where you're playing the Cinderella role, where you have been rejected in your value. And you have to first redeem that value within yourself. And as you send that energy out externally, that is how you draw the value back from others. So I was publicly rejected in my value because of my dark skin. And then in my lecture circuit, I publicly redeemed the value of my dark skin. And that is why, dark skin daughters were brought to me by light skinned mothers so they could understand their value and their security. It's not going against light skin, but it's what the dark skin has been the one most rejected in its value. And this is how we brought balance, because even the prince rejected Cinderella at the ball, and he had to be humbled out of his ego. And in the end, he goes to Cinderella on his knees saying, please forgive me. This is not the prince. This is a man in love and hoping I haven't lost your love, so him redeeming her value in the end, by accepting her value, even as a servant girl, he accepted her in her value and asked, her to be his bride. But when he took her back to the king, this is the one I love. The king was like, no, you can't marry her. She's a servant girl. You have to marry a princess. And this is where the prince has to unplug from the matrix or unplug from the kingdom. The Virgo, how we unplug from the matrix or the system of illusion. So this is where the prince unplugs from the kingdom and defies the king and says, well, this is the one I love and this is the one I'm going to marry. And once he does that, then the message comes through that she is a princess, but she's just from the kingdom of the dark, the hidden, the internal, the earth and water. She's in the kingdom of the light, the air and fire, and her royal status was not recognized. But once he unplugged from the matrix and defied, the system of illusion, that's how the message came through that she was a princess. So this is our story. Everything about that story is in that Cinderella story, unplugging from the matrix, where he had to unplug from the kingdom to defy the king, to proclaim her as his bride regardless. And that's how the spiritual message came through, that she truly was a princess. So that's why I say I play the quintessential Cinderella. But it's not just dark skin versus light. That's the epitome of that story. But it's wherever you were rejected in your value, the Cinderella energy, the rejected stone, the Capricorn energy, the sign of rejecting, being rejected in your value, being of the highest value, because Earth indicates value, and Capricorn is the last Earth sign, the highest Earth sign. So the highest in value being put at the bottom of the totem pole in her value, in the physical illusion, and having to be redeemed by the sun. And that is what that Cinderella story tells you all the way around. And that's what I identified with. And that's the role I was put to play. I always tell people, me and my brother were only 11 months apart. I was due to come in December. If I had came in December, we would have been born in the same year. Me and my brother, 11 months apart. And I always say that when my mom went back for her 6 weeks checkup after having my brother, that's when she was told she was pregnant with me, back-to-back pregnancies. And I always imagine that that is when she got this adrenaline rush, which was a melanin rush, when it imbued me, in that dark skin so that I could walk that path in the role of Cinderella and epitomize that information or that energy. So that is my personal connection to astrology. That is how, I was able to recognize through seeing the energy and understanding the energy who I was in my role, as Cinderella. And that's what all of us can do. But we have to look at an energy level to be able to see it, to see the whole. We've only been looking at the physical half or the illusionary half. And anytime you're looking at a part of the whole, that is the illusion. But now we're coming back full spiral where everybody can see this holistic story and begin to identify individually on their path and then step up to their purpose. But it takes your knowledge and your knowing of this spiritual astrological energy, to be able to put the pieces together and to understand who you are and your role through your energy. So that's my story. I guess my legacy. Yes.
Thank you so much, Sister Myra. I don't know about anybody else, but I could sit here and listen to you for hours. And we've been on the phone for hours, just
Oh, okay.
listening mainly.
Short, didn't we?
There's nothing like sitting at the feet. I would say it's so important to sit at the feet of your elders, your master teachers, and just absorb everything. And someone mentioned it in the chat. They said, I've been listening to Sister Myra since I was a baby, and every time I hear the story, it's something different.
Yes.
Um, so thank you so much for your time and your energy. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you, Sister Myra. And I'm so excited you putting your work together, your legacy work. And I just want to share on the screen. This is it, y'all. This is Sister Myra's. This is her work. This is the astrology that she teaches. This is her course, published book. No, you cannot get on Amazon. This is only for her students right now. But this is her book. This is her work. So again, thank you so much, Sister Myra, for your dedication, your hard work. For those of you, again, if you don't know, she has a course. She has a course. It is life-changing. Anyone that's taken her course, can you let us know in the chat? Everyone that took the course said that they were forever changed by it. They learned more about themselves, life, just everything just became clearer to them. I'm going to share on the screen for those who are interested. The website is, I'll put it in the chat. 1 second. There we go. So you're just going to go to the website here, spiritualu.com/astrology. There we go. Once you get to the website, you just go to right here, spiritual astrology. Okay, you can read through it to get more information about the course. Once you register, let me just share some things with you. You're going to have the course portal. Everything is online. Most of the course is on demand. Sister Myra is only teaching 3 live classes. And so this is a course portal where all of your information will be. The welcome letter, syllabus is here as well. All of the courses recordings will be in this course portal. There is also a chat, so you can ask questions, connect with your classmates, and we will also have a student guide that is a former astrology student of Sister Myra's that will help you as well during the class. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can email me at info@spiritualau.com. And Sister Myra, before we wrap for the night, do you have any closing words that you would like to share?
Like I said, everyone, we're at the threshold of how this is about to come to the head. I'm really looking at Scorpio energy, where this all comes to a head here, which is only couple of months away. So be prepared. Things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, but that doesn't affect you. Start off, in the knowing. Knowing who you are, knowing your power, knowing how to activate your power. And the first thing you do as you step up and start walking in the knowing, the first thing you do, the first line of business, the first action you take is to put out your protection for yourself and your loved ones. And as this thing goes topsy-turvy, you have to know and be secure that you will be protected. I don't care what happens. When I went to Houston in the beginning of my lecture circuit. I went to Houston, Texas, and I did the presentation Apocalypse Now. How do we contribute? And in that lecture, I told the people, I don't care what chaos is raging right outside your window. You don't blink, you don't even flinch. Your lack of fear is your lamb's blood, and the chaos will pass you over. There's no fixing this, there's no propping it up, there's no making it work. This has to fall. And you have to show that you have no stake in propping up this illusion in order for that chaos to pass you over. So be secure and be confident in that power you have from within, putting out your protection for your loved ones and putting out that protection for yourself. Like I said, when I walk up on that airplane, I have no qualms because I know that airplane is going to be protected because I'm on it and I'm a royal being and I'm being protected by the universe. This is what we have to walk in. We have to walk in the security of our royalty. We are royal beings. Now we have to step up to the security of that royalty. Big Mama said to me, you will represent me as I would be represented. And that is no walking on eggshell, mealy mouth type of bullshit, is what she said. So you got to walk in the security, earth and water, walk in the security of who you know you are from the internal. That's how you connect to this universal whole and your universal powers from the internal. And earth is your security. So in the love of Big Mama, the water, internal. So you have to be secure in who you are as a vessel of Big Mama, being protected. Nothing can touch this hammer time, and that's what you need to do right now and start putting out your protection for yourself, your loved ones, so that when this thing flips the script and it's about to flip, go topsy-turvy, you don't even flinch, you don't even blink. You know this is all in the best interest. The old has to go. That's the Scorpio transformation. The old has to go in order for the new to blossom. So that is how you participate in your security as to who you are in the larger scheme of things. This is not coming here for you. This is to take down the corrupted powers that have abused their powers at their maximum, at that 180-degree maximum. The system of illusion is now falling. And we've hopped that fence where we can now step up and activate our spiritual empowerment. But you got to know that. You got to walk in that knowing. It's not enough just to know. You have to be able to walk in that knowing. And that's what you need to start doing right now, because things are getting ready to get real squirrely. But you have to know that you have the power to protect yourself and to protect your loved ones. Sit back at peace. I told the people in Houston, get you a bag of popcorn, sit back, cross your legs, and watch the show. So that's it. Your mic is off. Mike.
Thank you again, Sister Myra. I know I speak for everyone here in the chat. We love you. We appreciate you. We're excited for class. Everyone that signed up, we will see you next week. Your books are being shipped out tomorrow, actually. So check out your emails for your tracking information. And yeah, we'll see you in about a week. Peace, everyone. Good night.
Love you, family. Take care.